Yesterday, that rainbow, chased by a rainbow. Earlier, His Holiness went to the beach park and saw those things, the volcanic eruptions there. All of this has already been discussed. How inconceivable the karma of sentient beings is. Everyone should have heard this. Then on our way back, an amazing thing happened. A rainbow followed His Holiness just like a shadow. Wherever his car moved, the rainbow moved closely. Hawaii is known as the Rainbow State, the Rainbow Country. There used to be this saying, so it is not unusual to see rainbows there, including at Larung or Domang or many other places. Sometimes there are quite a lot of rainbows, but this rainbow was really different. Greg, whom we interviewed later, he still remembers it very clearly now. At that time there was a very beautiful rainbow. Generally speaking, for the local people, they certainly wouldn't remember just having a rainbow. This must have been unusual otherwise. There are quite a lot of rainbows locally. Look, if a rainbow appeared at Larung when someone came at that time, if I wanted to remember it 30 years later, they probably couldn't remember an ordinary rainbow. But for this local person, if he still remembers it, there's also a reason. That's what I think. For a very long stretch of road, it seemed to chase after Rinpoche faithfully. Then His Holiness stopped and sat down by the road and took a picture with that rainbow as the background. This photo, it's very good. The interdependent arising is also very good. This photo recently, many of us have obtained it through various means. I think this is very interesting. After a while, the rainbow gradually disappeared. His Holiness kept reciting something silently there, because at that time His Holiness went a bit farther from the road to take photos. His Holiness stayed there for a slightly longer time. He seemed to recite something, but we didn't know what he recited. Not sure if it had something to do with Pele, the Hawaiian goddess of volcanoes and fire. This was my own speculation. I didn't dare to ask. Generally, in front of His Holiness, everyone was very nervous. Usually, what did you just recite? What was today about? These questions were very difficult, many things we didn't dare to ask. Yesterday I finished teaching everything below, and only then did they tell me, really. Left a pair of shoes. As Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok departed from the land of Tibet, I had packed some light summer clothes, but indeed, he arrived on this tropical island in his heavy Tibetan leather boots, actually, His Holiness's fur boots, when His Holiness was together with Acho Lama and Tulku Tenzin, when they were together, and also when His Holiness was with Nyenlong Dakini, Nyenlong Guru, when they were together, and also when His Holiness was together with others in other places. Those fur boots were worn for quite a long time. Inside they were quite worn out. After we looked at them, they should have been worn for quite a while. It certainly would be too hot and cumbersome to wear such shoes all the time. On one hand, it was not very convenient, and it also felt very hot. So at that time I found a chance and asked someone in the temple to take me. When finding someone to lead the way, at that time Miguel originally wanted to go, but he didn't go. At that time he found another management person from Nechung Temple. We went to a shopping mall in Hilo nearby. Hilo is that city, a small city called Hilo Shopping Center. When we entered the mall, I was amazed that there were neither glass sales counters nor salespeople standing behind the counters. All the goods were neatly displayed within customers' reach, so I could freely pick up anything I felt interested in. At that time, what I found very rare was that there were so-called supermarkets there. I saw a supermarket for the first time, because in our stores, although there were department stores and some small companies, there must be salespeople and counters inside. But there were none anywhere. Later, I felt very surprised. Wouldn't these things in this place be stolen by people? So open, you can choose freely by yourself. But some of the detailed things inside, I probably didn't know about. As for supermarkets, we at Larung have only had them in recent years. It seems like the Vajrasattva store, was it there a few years ago? For lamas and nuns, it only started last year or the year before. In the 1990s, in China, many people certainly couldn't see supermarkets at all. At that time, I felt it was very rare. Out of a large selection, I picked up a pair of sturdy leather sandals. It was priced at over $70, almost 800 RMB at that time. At that time, I felt the price was especially expensive. However, His Holiness' feet were too large to fit comfortably, even in the largest size shoes in China. But this time when buying these shoes in America, they were especially suitable for His Holiness's feet, because Americans are generally quite tall. It also matched His Holiness's body. It seemed like when we bought things, sometimes when buying other things, it's just that there were few clothes for monastics sold. They weren't for sale, but generally speaking, other things were easier, the sizes were more suitable. Spending a bit more money also felt fine, but at that time I always felt that when calculating in US dollars it was very painful. I didn't dare to buy anything at that time. After we got back, His Holiness tried them on, and they turned out to be a perfect fit. He also said they were very comfortable. Later he wore them continuously during our entire trip, and even after we returned to the land of Tibet for a while, His Holiness would still wear this pair of shoes often. This pair of shoes was actually a brand. At that time in our book, whether to write its name or not, we were also afraid of advertising, so we didn't write it. Actually, it is a brand. It's also quite sturdy. Until the very end, when His Holiness went to many places in Han areas, these shoes often appeared in photos. They had never broken down. They appeared in many shots. When we left Hawaii, His Holiness' Tibetan leather boots were left at Nechung Dorje Drayang Ling. The resident Lama held them as a treasure. He wrapped them in a piece of yellow cloth and locked them in a cabinet, and only showed them to a couple of fortunate people. They've been preserved for 30 years. So far, this pair of shoes has been preserved on this island for almost 30 years. When writing it at that time, we said almost. Now they've been brought back. Until recent years, I entrusted a person to try to get them back with an amount of donations for the temple, but they didn't really want to sell them for money. Later, through discussion, I also made some connections with their temple. Then they also thought that if their person in charge changed in the future, as for that temple, they originally wanted to send some monks from India, but after the old Lama passed away, there have been no monks. Up to now, there are no monks. So we don't know in the future. Now after that old generation passes away, whether those who understand this history, it's hard to say. Moreover, it's quite humid there. After multiple attempts, the people in charge of the temple finally agreed. After they agreed, now they're placed at Domang Monastery's Memorial Hall for His Holiness. In the Memorial Hall, there are also the tape recorder used when His Holiness taught Dharma abroad, and also loudspeakers, different robes, and also some Dharma texts. They're all still very precious, some blessed objects. In 2017, I was invited by some universities and monasteries in Hawaii to give Dharma lectures. That time, I wished to revisit Nechung Dorje Drayang Ling. However, due to some reasons, my itinerary to travel abroad that year had to be cancelled. I remember it should have been on January 16th when the relevant departments in Chengdu held a symposium for me, saying, "If you go abroad tomorrow, we wish you all the best and hope you return soon." Then the next day, on the 17th, I was preparing to board the plane, carrying my bag. At this time, they said they wanted to hold a small symposium and asked me to go. There were 3 leaders and 3 secretaries. Then they told me, "We're really sorry. Yesterday we wished you well, but today there are new requirements from above. This year the academy situation is quite complex. You cannot go abroad this time." At that time, the people around me kept observing my attitude. They probably thought I would complain or suffer. I was still very understanding. I thought, no matter what I did, I probably couldn't change it. Originally, at that time, we were going to Norway, Sweden, Switzerland, and the United States. In Norway, there were several schools. In the United States, MIT, Harvard, University of Chicago, and also University of Hawaii, Nechung Temple, a total of 26 events. Half a year's preparation was already done, but later, because at that time the academy was just about to start rectification, at this time they said I couldn't go. I said not going is also very good, it doesn't matter. Then we started to rearrange the schedule again, so I did not make it in the end. At that time, however, in November of that year, I went again. I didn't make it to Hawaii, but Harvard, MIT, including Norway, Switzerland, Sweden, several places were already visited. This is the history I talked about earlier. Next, today we'll slowly talk about the later parts. Maybe my voice is a bit Nechung Protector again. Speaking of our Nechung Protector, this time we also made some Probably we should give one to each person. We can also bless them for everyone here.
Nardana Baba Mayra Lavajato Mar Nardana Baba Mayra Lavajato Mio Dharma, the Droba and the Masherman, Yeb Dharma had the Droba had the Kandatangata, what the Kanzaro down, but the Masherman, so Mio Dharma had the Droba had the Kandatangata, what the Kanzaro down. Masherman is one, the Nutendo Lanji, the Koracha, the Junajan, the Metsadon, Chon Loversat. Subtrati Jambanzari, Suha, Subtrati Jambanzari, Subtrati Jambanzari, so Majortumbo, Traji show, Yano to Jason, Traji show, the Dramatic Trash, Jericho to Trashi show.
Good. The protector deity, we can give them to you on Monday. Below, Nechung protector again. On the morning of June 21st, because on June 22nd we left, all 4 days had been completed. Prior to giving the Vajrakilaya Gurkukma empowerment, once again His Holiness talked about his connection with the Nechung protector. This Vajrakilaya Gurkukma, when I originally wanted to translate, for example, when doing the Manjushri Great Perfection, could we give everyone the Manjushri Great Perfection empowerment? And then for Vajrakilaya Gurkukma, if we could give the Vajrakilaya Gurkukma empowerment, then all of His Holiness's Western empowerments would be complete. This time, all the empowerments related to His Holiness have been completed. We should be very joyful. Perhaps inside, including the later Chetsun Yingti Great Perfection, there are some individual ones we don't have, but it's also okay. Basically, many of us have received the Nyingtik Yabzi. As for the Nyingtik Yabzi, most of us have received. So this time should count as, when I teach a journey to the West, it's also very convenient, and everyone should also be joyful. At that time, to receive the Vajrakilaya Gurkukma empowerment, it was not so simple. Each of their stops was not so simple. Prior to giving the Vajrakilaya Gurkukma empowerment, His Holiness again talked about his relationship with the Nechung protector. He talked about it before. He said, in the past, Orgyen Padmasambhava brought the Dharma to Tibet and made it shine throughout the land of snows, like sunlight universally illuminating the earth. Can you bring me my other pair of glasses? Wait a moment. My eyes are a bit. Before coming to Tibet, in order to make that happen, it was necessary to stimulate all good conditions and dispel any possible obstacles or unfavorable conditions. So before coming to Tibet, Guru Rinpoche carried with him this Vajrakilaya sadhana that was hidden in a small pouch and hung around his neck. Since it was such a special pith instruction that he rarely transmitted to anyone, this kind of special pith instruction, this sadhana, was called the Vajrakilaya neck pouch, or Phurba Gurkukma in Tibetan, because it is a terma teaching. Why is it called Vajrakilaya Gurkukma? This will also be mentioned later. Guru Padmasambhava himself at that time could not casually transmit it externally. In the past, in our Tibetan areas, there were many gurus who put some of the deepest pith instructions, the most important ones, in a pouch and hung it around their necks. So this Dharma method is called Vajrakilaya Gurkukma. Speaking of Dharma practice, it is a universal law. He is talking about interdependent arising, that however profound a practice could be, if favorable conditions are not present, it is unable to benefit sentient beings much. On the contrary, even if a teaching is not so advanced, as long as all favorable conditions come together very well, it can immensely benefit sentient beings. This is a universal law of Dharma. So this Vajrakilaya practice, every interdependent arising related to it is perfect from the outer, inner, or secret aspects. It has never had even one trace of anything inauspicious. Because this practice has excellent interdependent arising, and such perfect and excellent interdependent arising, with such wonderful auspicious connections, if later practitioners also practice it, its blessing power is especially swift. So His Holiness always said he has certain practices, including the Manjushri retreat practice, Afurba, which is Vajrakilaya. None of these sadhanas have been translated, but a sadhana we usually recite has already been translated before. This is also for ourselves at the appropriate time. Now, having received His Holiness's Manjushri Dzogchen empowerment, one should practice Manjushri Dzogchen well. As for the Vajrakilaya empowerment, at least recite it regularly. That sadhana is very short, one should still recite it well. So the root holder of this practice, why is the interdependent arising successful? The root holder is Gyalwa Rinpoche and the Nechung protector, the chief of all Dharma protectors. It is their root practice. At that time, the practice was handed into their hands. How was it given to Gyalwa Rinpoche? I did not directly ask Rinpoche saying, I have this sadhana, you'd better practice it. But Rinpoche himself voluntarily said to me, since you have this Vajrakilaya practice, please grant me its empowerment and instructions for practice. After he made this request, His Holiness treated it as making mandala offerings, gave him the empowerment, and explained all the practice instructions. We've also mentioned this in other teachings. Not only that, out of immeasurable joy, he wrote the prayer to the lineage masters. This is in the front of Vajrakilaya, also in the lineage prayer. It mentions his and my karmic connections in different past lives, His Holiness's. Moreover, when meeting him at that time, a fire offering sadhana appeared in his mind, and he personally wrote it down in person. Gyalwa Rinpoche, everyone knows, he is a great spiritual guide for world peace. It's hard to imagine him personally writing it down like this. This process, we've also mentioned it in other places before. Indeed, at that time His Holiness suddenly had the vision appear, and then it flowed out. At that time it was recorded, and the handwriting was also His Holiness's own handwriting. But this action can also be said to be the result of his previous aspiration and karmic connection. There's a passage later saying that because of this reason, His Holiness's activities pervade throughout this world. This sentence was later taken out. As for how this practice was entrusted to the Nechung protector, how was it? He received the empowerment directly when he descended into the body of the oracle. Usually, since it is an intense process, generally with fierce spirit descent, there isn't time to receive empowerments and pith instruction teachings. But when transmitting this Vajrakilaya practice empowerment, he stayed to receive empowerment and listened faithfully and respectfully. During the teaching, he also offered His Holiness a Buddha statue, a text and a stupa, and exhorted me, please rely on this Vajrakilaya practice to benefit sentient beings more extensively, and also please compose a sadhana of subjugating activity. I also mentioned this in the previous class. When we were at Namdroling Monastery in India, it should have been August 17th, at that time His Holiness was also giving everyone the Vajrakilaya empowerment. Suddenly, when His Holiness manifested as the wrathful form of Vajrakumara, this subjugating activity sadhana suddenly appeared. At that time it should have been Khenpo Namdrol who recorded it. At that time at Namdroling Monastery it suddenly appeared during the empowerment period. Actually, the Dharma protector also requested him to write it. At that time I was expressing gratitude to the Nechung protector because he accomplished what I wished for. according to my wishes. So when I was in Dharamsala, I also composed an offering prayer to the Nechung protector for him. This is a short one. That day when I went to look in the Tibetan, at that time I couldn't find it or something. There is such a one, it's above there. It's already been mentioned in Recollection of the Time Gone By, that day when His Holiness gave the Vajrakilaya empowerment. On the day the Nechung protector descended, His Holiness composed it. This was before. This time, when I just came here, at the request of the Nechung protector and many disciples here, you see that 4-line prayer we recite now. Not only on the surface does it look like those lamas and disciples requested it, but the Dharma protector also quietly requested His Holiness. But this was not seen by everyone, so His Holiness let it slip here. At that time, at the request of the protector and disciples, he composed a 4-line offering prayer to the Nechung protector. If you chant these 2 prayers regularly, then the Nechung protector will wholeheartedly assist you and give you uncommon great protection. So this time our interdependent arising is also quite good. Yesterday we didn't distribute it, the day after tomorrow also, but in our book there is that small one, the same as this one. If everyone makes offerings regularly in the future, it should be very good for oneself. My relationship with the Nechung protector is not newly created. Our bond has been established and strengthened through many lifetimes. In the past, Turton Sogil, originally this passage wasn't used, but later it seems, although some words are the same, much of what's expressed inside is different. So this is slightly similar to the previous part, but the way of expression is a bit different. In the past, Turton Sogyal had given the protector empowerments, teachings, and many instructions. The Nechung protector also sometimes gave prophecies to the Turton like a guide, explaining to him the places where termas were hidden. And sometimes between the 13th Gyalwa Rinpoche, Thubten Gyatso, and Turton Sogyal, he would take messages back and forth. As I mentioned yesterday, His Holiness mentioned yesterday, didn't he? As mentioned yesterday, when I arrived in Dharamsala, the Nechung protector, his oracle, that monk came before me. At that time I was simply talking about stories of my previous life. His Holiness should say, actually regarding this Nechung protector, before it was told rather long, didn't I say, at a certain dusk, that ordained person came and then talked about some things, about how the Nechung protector at that time went to the Potala, talked about these things. Then the protector descended, and he was overjoyed, like a father and a son meeting again after a long separation. Imbued with faith and devotion, he came close to me and burst into tears. His facial expressions also naturally showed overwhelming devotion and faith. The next day I went to Nechung Monastery. At that time, below where we were staying, regarding this Nechung Monastery, there's one in India, and also in Lhasa, you see, there's also one in Hawaii. The monks of Nechung Monastery asked me, would you like to invite the protector to come today? At that time I thought, if he were to give prophecies regarding political matters, it might be inconvenient. I would have trouble when I go back. So I answered, I don't need the protector to descend, no need for spirit descent. But the monks of Nechung Monastery said, although you do not invite the protector to come, observing from the protector's devotion and respect toward you and joyful expression, it is very likely that he will suddenly descend. Thus the apparel for the protector was prepared. They prepared all aspects in advance. Generally, when a spirit descends, they must dress him in, for example, like our Vajra dance, including Dharma protectors, King Gisa of Ling. This kind of warrior deity costume, including his armor, his hat, and so on. In our Recollection of the Time Gone By, there's one of him in the process of spirit descent, with several monks holding him on the sides. Actually, at that time, his characteristic is his eyes don't blink, they stay open the whole time, looking quite terrifying. But the people nearby all had a spiritual response, very much so. That kind of energy field is not ordinary. I think I also recorded some things, including when His Holiness was in the mandala giving empowerment, once the protector Tsu Marpo also descended. At that time the spiritual response was also quite strong, but His Holiness probably didn't want it mentioned here, so later it wasn't included. Actually, in Tibetan areas such spirit descents are quite common. Then, when I was giving the empowerment, the protector indeed descended. When the oracle just went into a trance, the monks immediately put the special outfit on him. Then the protector came, and with unsurpassable respect and sincerity, he offered me a Buddha statue, a text, and a stupa. Complying with my wish, he did not touch on politics, said some auspicious words about flourishing the Dharma and bringing peace and happiness to sentient beings, and wished Gyalwa Rinpoche to remain in this world for a very long time and for his activities to flourish, things like that. What the protector said was written down, and you can refer to it for details. Actually, at that time when His Holiness went there, all have descriptions in various written forms. In addition, there are more stories about my connection with the Nechung protector, but if you want to hear them, it would take a very long time, so I think what I have said so far is good enough. His Holiness didn't elaborate further on some of the relationships between the Nechung protector and him. All in all, I have just briefly explained to you about the wonderful occasion of how this practice was transmitted to its root holder, Gyalwa Rinpoche, and the Nechung protector. Because this practice has such an unusual background, it is filled with enormous blessing power unmatched by any other practice. This mainly talks about how the Vajrakilaya practice is especially supreme. It is from this Vajrakilaya Gurukukma practice that Guru Rinpoche began his Dharma propagation in Tibet, and it is the mother of all Dharmas in Tibet. Just like our mother Prajna Paramita, this Vajrakilaya practice, actually among the Dharma teachings in Tibetan areas, is also the most important. That is to say, this Vajrakilaya neck pouch, anyone who practices it will enjoy all wonderful and auspicious circumstances, eliminate all misfortunes, and have all their wishes fulfilled. You see, these are the merits of His Holiness's Vajrakilaya neck pouch. No matter who practices it, it's best to have received the empowerment beforehand. Then, if one practices it afterward continuously, whether Westerners or many others, they all practice it continuously. As for us in Tibetan areas, ever since His Holiness revealed this Vajrakilaya, we've been practicing it continuously. So you all should also see, starting this year, after receiving the empowerment, try your best to practice this Vajrakilaya neck pouch. Have all your wishes fulfilled, you see, eliminate all obstacles. Actually, Vajrakilaya is most important for practitioners. It eliminates all obstacles, very important. Among Terton Sogyal and His Holiness's Dharma teachings, mainly for practitioners in eliminating obstacles, it's very important. So now I'm going to give you the empowerment of Vajrakilaya Gurukukma. His Holiness then gave the Vajrakilaya Gurukukma empowerment. Then that day, this was in the morning session was completed with the empowerment given. Then in the afternoon, we went to Punalu U, Black Sand Beach Park. The landscape there is made from basalt formed from lava that erupted from volcanoes and flowed into the ocean, then solidified, and through natural weathering and ocean scouring was formed. You can see it in our photo. Right. His Holiness's shoes were also just mentioned. On my computer and on the ground, you can see it's still black. This beach is very famous locally. Nearby there is also a beautiful park where many people often go to enjoy themselves. Nearby, one is the Abbot Lama of Nechung Monastery, the one I was supporting. That Lama, I really wanted to see him. But after he passed away last year, I was saddened for a period of time. He also really wanted to see me, but later we didn't have the karmic connection to meet in this lifetime. Nearby there's a park where many people go. The environment makes one feel refreshed and delighted. There, His Holiness enjoyed the scenery and relaxed a bit. At this point, the Dharma propagation in Hawaii was complete. There are two follow-up sections. One is a magical country. Coming to Hawaii this time, what impressed me most was the technology and economy of Western countries, at that time speaking. Now it's basically about the same. For example, at the entrance of our building, there was a motion sensor light. When someone came, it would turn on. When they left, the light would go out. Now you think I'm very foolish. There's nothing worth writing about this. But at that time I was deeply impressed, so I wrote it down casually. A slight cough would make it light up. At that time, besides light bulbs, I had never seen anything like this. It felt especially fresh and novel. I thought there were people operating it in secret somewhere. Later, I asked many people. I specifically went to look in secret places. There should be some place where maybe some people, when I just went in, they would turn it on for me. When I came out, they'd turn on the light for me. Then after I went in, they would turn it off. There must be someone I even hid inside. quietly looking everywhere, but there was no one anywhere. Then it just naturally went out. It was especially rare, felt very inconceivable. Later I asked many people about the reason. They only talked about how to use it. Using it is very simple. You just kick it with your foot or cough once, but they didn't understand the technical principle. I asked many people why it's like this. They all couldn't explain it. Maybe you're like this too. Except for those who repair electrical things, would they know? With motion sensor lights, why does coughing make them light up? Where is the principle in this? Many of us now may only know how to use them, but don't know. If you were asked to explain, when I cough it lights up, where is the principle in this? Those of us who've studied physics might be a bit better now. When we studied physics before, these things didn't exist, so for us it was very novel. Moreover, those who came here to listen to the teachings all had big mobile phones and drove cars. For me, this was unimaginable. You should know back then in our Tibetan areas, the wealthiest 10,000 yuan families only had bicycles. Even motorcycles were very rare, except for some high government officials and leaders who had assigned cars and must have a special driver. When we were in middle school, we studied middle school in Upper Luo, Lower Luo. In the Zongtai Zongmai area, it's called a district of 4 communes. There at that time we knew two drivers who could drive among the 4 communes. We thought these two were very impressive. They themselves also seemed like they could fly planes, very arrogant in front of us. So in our era, basically if someone could drive themselves, that driver was like, we thought at that time. Now look, not to mention other big cities, including some remote places when villagers have meetings, everyone drives various kinds of cars to come. So at that time I thought, wow, those people are very wealthy. Each one seemed like there weren't many people in the city, one person driving one car. Then I also specifically went to see how does one person drive one car to come. As a result, after class was over, they drove themselves back. When coming to class, they each came by themselves. At that time in the mainland, everyone took public buses. Public buses were still very hard to find. At such a time, so the idea that there must be a special driver was hard to imagine, that everyone had such a private car and could drive it themselves. Of course, now it seems not rare, but when we arrived there, this feeling was quite fresh all along. So at this point, I also wrote it down. When just arriving here, seeing many fresh things was especially unforgettable. After getting used to them, there was no special feeling. However, for His Holiness, he was never attracted to those material things. What he cared about was how to help sentient beings get rid of afflictive emotions and how to liberate them from samsara. Sometimes we also mentioned at meals, this place is so wealthy, everyone driving cars. His Holiness didn't exclaim or say much about it. So how many people attended the teachings, what they were like? Besides that, he didn't seem to care much. The last article is, "My conch is filled with His Holiness blessing." A few years ago, we interviewed an American disciple who met His Holiness back then, called Greg Herbst. He has strong faith in His Holiness and is very devoted and also accepted our interview. At that time, he specifically wore that outfit from those years, the same style of clothing. But later it seemed in the article he said this wasn't necessary. I don't know what he meant, because he worked in that volcano park, his work uniform. He still has it now. He's probably retired now. But at that time you can compare Miguel and Greg, these two 30 years ago and 30 years later, just like the actors from Dream of the Red Chamber before comparing themselves. If several of us compare ourselves, wow, now 30 years later, everything is finished. There's such a feeling. At that time, he specifically wore this outfit. He said, when Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche visited us, I worked as a firefighter in Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. The resident Lama, known fondly as Tipola, was my teacher. Besides Dharma practice, I went to a lot of religious ceremonies of native Hawaiians. He said at that time he often went with his father to participate. Those native people also use conches. He specifically blew conches there. So in blowing conches, he was very interested and especially good at it. The conch is an important instrument in their ceremonies, so I learned how to blow it, and I am quite good at it. Then when His Holiness taught, I followed the tradition of Buddhism and blew the conch. At that time we all thought he blew the conch so well. Why was he like this? When His Holiness transmitted the Dharma, after he blew the conch, I placed my conch close to his throne when he taught, because based on native Hawaiians' belief, the vibration of his voice would be stored as good energy in the conch. When we transmit Dharma now, we also blow conches. This is also very important. When I went to India, at that time I requested some conches. When returning, I gave them to some Khenpos and Khenmos. You all too, now I heard when we have morning classes or study sessions, everyone is blowing conches. In this way, the Dharma teaches good energy is stored there. Moreover, in Buddhism, it's also said that sentient beings who hear the conch will not fall into lower realms but attain liberation. This is very important. According to Buddhist perspective, it may also receive blessing. He said it this way. He described it like this. During Choje's stay, he visited the Volcanoes National Park. Since I worked there, I took him to the office of the superintendent. When he was introduced to a rock that Hawaiians believe to have some medical effect, he was quite curious and asked, "Can it cure me?" Based on these words, he inferred that perhaps His Holiness's health was not particularly good. At that time, His Holiness's health was still okay. Later on, we'll also talk about this. One was Napa Valley. In this place, His Holiness fell quite seriously ill, and also Boston and Canada. In these three places it was indeed quite, and also that, the Rocky Mountains anyway, in the other four stops, His Holiness's health wasn't very good. Here it should be considered okay. Later, when His Holiness went to Singapore in 1995, His Holiness's health was quite good. We also went to the crater, and the photo that has a rainbow in the background was taken there. Then we drove all the way to the coast to see the place where lava fell from the cliff to the ocean. Yujin Norbu and his entourage were all quite amazed. This photo was taken there. What he said at that time, this photo of his, you see now his beard has all turned white. At that time he was holding this conch. Just now he was still that. He's the one in here at that time. He said, the photo of Rinpoche, Miguel and I was taken at Hawaii Volcanoes National Park. Though many years have passed, Yujin Norbu's visit has left us with profound impressions. On one hand, it's from his direct blessing. This is inconceivable. On the other hand, it may also be that in this conch is stored His Holiness's voice. So I specially brought this conch today. He's also quite impressive, having preserved this conch for 30 years. Sometimes with certain details, we feel that Westerners, one thing is, their memory is quite good. When His Holiness went to the Han region, sometimes from 20 years ago, we asked many lay practitioners, I don't know. Anyway, he came at that time, what Dharma was transmitted. Many can't remember clearly. But Westerners, one thing is, the materials they preserve are quite good. And their memory is also, not necessarily all Westerners, but at least these people. He still preserves this conch. This conch, that day when we interviewed, he specially brought it. Should this have been interviewed by Janke or who? I can blow it for you. But you know, even today I still cannot believe what moves me is that a great Lama like Khenpo Jigme Phuntsok Rinpoche would come all the way from the land of Tibet to our tiny temple. Actually, Nechung Monastery is very small. To take care of us, it's really hard to imagine. Alright, so our first stop has come to a perfect conclusion. Next, everyone dedicate the merit.
Bandara Badma Sadar